Hi, I'm John Palmer, here with John Erickson, founder and executive chairman of Erickson Communities. The company recently signed a voluntary petition for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and is being sold. We want to discuss now what this means in overall terms, and especially how it might impact folks living here. John, you have a reputation, a well-earned reputation, I might say, for being a great real advocate for seniors. Anyone who's visited any of the campuses can see that and can really feel it. What is this voluntary bankruptcy action going to mean for the residents?
Well, John, I'm hoping that I can make it mean almost nothing to the existing residents that sit in the communities. Their services and their everyday life should have very, very little impact. I'm trying to keep this as more of a financial transaction relative to my company. The company has two big divisions. One is the fact that it manages all of these campuses and takes care of all the seniors, and the other, it puts together this capital structure to develop and build new campuses and roll out campuses across the country. So I'm trying to separate that now into a place where we can deal with the services separate from the development side of the company.
And what, John, does that mean then to the residents, to separate management on one side and real estate on the other?
Well, looking back, I had the intention of growing this lifestyle to as many people as I could reach across the country. And in doing that, I put the entire package together, the services we deliver to the capital structure for borrowing to build and develop. And as the company grew, nobody would ever let you separate that. Everybody wanted all the revenue in one big bucket. And that's probably part of the troubles that we have today, is that with all the revenue in one bucket, it creates too much turmoil. So now, if I separate those into two buckets and have the service side of the company, management to all the communities over here, not involved in the capital structure of new development, it'll be a safer platform for all my residents. And in the meantime, if I make this more of a financial transaction, I'm hoping it gets resolved in the courts without the residents having any impact at all.
That would be terrific. That would be terrific indeed. What really happened here? And how are things different now? And why did they change all of a sudden? Was it the general economic meltdown in real estate or what?
Well, you almost have to go back to the beginning to understand this, because when I started Charlestown, that was the first community we built. I changed two industry rules. I gave this 100% refundable entrance deposit, and we went to a fee-for-service contract instead of this pooled risk insurance contract. And those were two changes the industry had never experienced. That was back in 1983. So I had to put together a different financing structure and go out and beg the banks to give me enough capital to launch. I was able to prove that we could make this work, but it took the first $5 million was all I was given to do the first building on the campus. And then they gave me $11 million and then $16 million. But when I finished Charlestown, and it worked, it took 10 years, but it was a beautiful campus, took care of 2,500 seniors, and it was profitable. It was stable financially. It created a bond rating for its final bonds. So everything looked good. I wanted to do this again.
John, tell me a little bit more about how these pressures built toward this voluntary bankruptcy. Did you see it coming?
Well, you saw pieces of it. You could tell there were clouds on the horizon as far back as really 2007. We actually did a major refinancing in the middle of 2007 and put $250 million of new capital into the company. But the banks at that time asked us to go to the equity markets and bring some additional capital in to give them some relief. So we started at the third quarter of 2007 and went out into the equity markets. But by the time we got there in 2008, we're talking to people, the real estate markets are now drifting. The bubble is leaking a bit, and so you're seeing prices coming down, not dramatically, but they're definitely diminishing. And by the time we got to September, now you have the housing market bubble actually burst, and you get a 20–30% change in housing. On top of that, you end up with this frozen capital markets, and now you got a perfect storm, not just a cloud on the horizon. And so what this basically did is it meant that people were not going to move at the rate that we wanted them to. And so what we had to do was go back to the banks and say, we missed our covenant this month. We didn't get 10 move-ins, this 10 move-ins that we promised and the rest. And in the past, the banks would have said, let's restructure and we'll reposition the loan and keep going. But this time around, they said, nope, give me all my money back. And so that forced us to have to go to the courts. And when we finally realized, after downsizing the company, making all the changes, and riding through this, that we were not going to get resolution, we decided we'd use the courts to force the restructuring with the debt. And when it got to a point where I knew that in the next 6 months it could begin to affect residents if I didn't do something, that's when I began planning for a voluntary Chapter 11.
What you did differently, it seems to me, is you came up with this novel idea of the deposit. They sell their home, they take part of the money, and they put a deposit in on a residence, and then when either they pass away or they leave, they get the money back.
That's correct. And this would make it available to anybody that's ever owned a home in our country. So that's like 70% of America's population is a single-family homeowner in the senior market. And so it made it available to more people than anybody had ever imagined that you could get this service level to.
And those deposits are okay? They're safe?
I've refunded every entrance deposit of every person that's ever moved into one of our communities. So my answer in the generic is absolutely they're safe. But there's really two divisions you want to look at in that. If you're in a mature community that's already built out and finished, well, your deposit is really a contract with this nonprofit corporation. And the deal is that the next person that moves into your apartment, you get your money back. And that's been long-standing. It's been in effect for all 27 years. And so in the mature communities, I don't have any doubt that your deposits are safe. Those nonprofits are not in bankruptcy. This has to do with the management company restructuring. Now, in the developing communities, that's a different story because we use the deposits to actually build out the communities. And so there's a different structure there. First motion that we had with the judge was to say, we want entrance deposits escrowed for the protection of the people moving in. And the judge picked up on that right away and said, you're right. Now the banks, guess what they wanted? They'd like those entrance deposits to be used to pay themselves down. And the judge said, no. Until we get stability here, we're going to escrow all entrance deposits. So if somebody moved in and had to move out, they're safe, their entrance deposit's fully refundable.
You're going to have a role in the new management team?
First of all, it's not quite a new management team. It's a new management ownership and capital structure. So we will have an equity owner of the company, but the team players should all be the same. We're not making any changes at the individual campuses, the executive directors, the dining directors, the corporate staff that supports all of the communities. That's what people are buying in the company. And so that's what people want to remain the same.